Hi guys, it's Grandpa. We're going to start reading again today. Today we're on chapter 10, and chapter 10 is halfway through the book because this book has 20 chapters. Chapter 10 looks like this. It's got a picture down at the bottom of the page of a little flower, and at the top it says chapter 10. 10 looks like 10, and this chapter is called Dimwood Forest. And Poppy really didn't want to go through Dimwood Forest because she knows it's a dangerous place. There's a lot of animals in there that would like to catch and eat a mouse. Here's where we start, chapter 10. Poppy searched desperately for a place to hide. Glitter Creek ran behind her. Before her stood Dimwood Forest. But she had little choice. She plunged among the shadowy tree trunks and began running wildly, her only desire to put as much distance between herself and Mr. Okax's tree as possible. It did not take long before an exhausted Poppy had to stop. Her sides ached. She was hot and cold all at once. Her heart felt as though it would break out through her ribs. Gasping for breath, she crept beneath a leaf, then peered about to see where she had come. It was as if the sun had been stolen. Only thin ribbons of light seeped down through the green and milky air syrupy with the scent of pine, huckleberry, juniper. Those are all kinds of trees. From the rolling emerald carpeted earth, fingers of lacy ferns curled up, above which the massive fir and pine trees stood, pillar-like, to support an invisible sky. Hovering over everything was a silence as deep as the trees were tall. Poppy gazed at it in awe. She was not sure what she had thought about Dimwood Forest, what it would be like. She knew only that she had never imagined it would be so vast. Vast means big. So dense, so dark. The sight made her feel immensely isolated and small. Feeling small made her a part of all she saw. Being a part of it made her feel immense. Immense means big. It was so terribly confusing. And here's a picture of little bitty Poppy. You can see her down here at the bottom by the log. And she's in the forest that has all these giant trees. So she feels little bitty in a forest with big trees. And she's noticing how quiet it is. She keeps talking about silence. Silence means that there's no noise. The silence was broken by the sound of sharp tapping. Poppy ducked, but nothing happened. From another direction came a yelp, and then a screech. Poppy shivered. Closer still was the smothered scurry of something slithery and unseen. A tree groaned. A branch snapped. There was the passing scamper of little feet. Poppy's heart raced just as fast. She could only guess what animals were making such sounds. Automatically she thought of porcupines, recalling vividly the frightening picture her father had shown the family. Had not Mr. Okax given them a special warning about a particularly bloodthirsty porcupine? Bloodthirsty means he's just waiting to kill and eat something. About a bloodthirsty porcupine he had recently seen in the forest? He had. Poppy grew even more tense. She had to find a place to regain her composure. Anxiously, she gazed about for a safe place to rest. What she found was a massive boulder, its top half matted with dark moss, its bottom part embedded in the earth, and beneath it all was a little hollow. It means like a little cave, a little place that she could get into for safety. Poppy bounded over to the rock. Close up, the hollow proved to be more like a cave. utterly dark at the deep end. So what was there? She edged forward, sniffing the air. She froze. A distinct animal smell alarmed all of her senses. Unable to identify what the animal might be, she listened intently, her ears flicking this way and that. Seeing and hearing nothing, she crept forward until she was completely inside the cave. Was anything else in there? Only when she was quite certain nothing else was in there did she begin to clean herself. Mr. Okax, from a hiding place on the far side of Dimwood Forest, watched that barn at New House very intently. His nervous talons clenched and unclenched the branch upon which he was perched. At first he tried to deny the fear that he felt inside him, but it was growing too fast. It could not be denied that he, Okax, the great horned owl, should feel fear. That made him livid. Livid means really mad. It was for others to be fearful, not him. "It's unfair," he hissed. "It's unnatural." Suddenly, hearing his own outburst, he looked about in alarm, anxious that some other creature might see and hear him. No matter what, his fearfulness must never be known. He spread his wings and glided silently away from New House. In a temper, he recalled the mouse that he had seen in Glitter Creek. Perhaps the body had been tossed up onto the bank by now. He was upset enough to eat anything, even if it was already dead. When he reached the creek, he began to fly upstream, moving low over the water. Poppy paused in her fur cleaning now and again to gaze out at the forest. It should never have been called Dimwood, she told herself. It should have been called Darkwood. She kept asking herself how she had ever thought she'd find her way through such a fearsome place. The likelihood of her survival was growing slimmer by the moment. And though at the moment she felt relatively safe, she worried that she had not gotten far enough away from Mr. Okax's watching tree. But which way should she go? She had no idea where she was. She was lost, and she knew it. She recalled the vow that she had made on Bannock Hill, that she would never leave home again. She considered going back home. She wanted to, but then she thought about what would happen if she did return with nothing to report to Lungwort about Mr. Okax. No, life would be miserable if she did that. Poppy sighed. It was so hard to be courageous. Courageous means brave. So hard to be a coward. Going forward or going back seemed equally awful. So much easier to just do nothing. But if she did nothing, then she would surely die. So what was she going to do? Trying to stay calm, she reminded herself that by pressing on, she at least had a chance to make a difference for her family. Now, if only she knew which direction would lead her to New House. Mr. Okax concluded that the mouse he had seen in the water was gone. Must have got washed away. At least there was no evidence of its existence, dead or alive. In any case, he was still so upset by what he had seen at New House that he found it hard to concentrate on searching. His head ached. All he could think about was getting some sleep. He would just go home. He flew deep into Dimwood Forest, moving in a northerly direction. Poppy peered nervously out from underneath that rock. If this is midday, she said to herself, I'd sure hate to be out in this forest at night. She considered staying and sleeping for a while, but the distinct smell of other animals made her too nervous. It certainly seemed not to be about, but what if the animal came back while she was sleeping? Nope, too risky. If she wanted to sleep, and she did, she was going to have to find a better place. Checking in all directions, paying particular attention to the angle of the slanting rays of sunlight, and knowing that moss only grew on the north side of trees, Poppy made up her mind that she could make a rough determination as to which way east was, and that was the direction from which she had come. As she recalled the lay of the land, New House was to the north. She would go north then, hoping for the best. Mr. Oacax came to a rest on the gray, lifeless tree, a snag. That was his nest. With its top broken off, the snag rose twice as high as the blackberry bush from the ground. A high hole served as an entrance to its hollowness. So a snag is a dead tree, and it usually has the top of it broken off. It's only just the bottom part of the tree that's left. And often it's broken off because the inside was hollow, kind of like a drinking straw. For a while, the owl sat at the edge of his nest and stared before him, thinking only about what he had seen at New House. Just to think about it made him tense. He felt like he was in grave danger. The question was, what kind of danger? Was he about to lose his food? Would he have to fight? If he did, he knew that he might be defeated. If he was defeated, would he have to move to another territory? Was there anything he could do about this situation? Oh, it was all just so painful to contemplate. Fearful, the owl scanned his neighborhood, paying special attention to a very large hollow log on the ground, not far from his snag. Its ancient thick bark was rust-colored and encrusted with yellow fungus, kind of looked like a stubby angel wing. A clutch of pale mushrooms grew from the rotting soil around it. Just the thought of the creature who had recently come to live in that log made Mr. Oacax mad. It was as if the whole world was ganging up on him. Too tired to think about that now, Mr. Oacax dropped down into his nest. Feeling safe there, it did not take him long to fall asleep in a restless world. And here is a picture of that big, dead, hollow log that's on the ground that Mr. Oacax was looking about and thinking about. And remember, he said an animal had just moved into this log, and that made him mad. He didn't like that an animal had just moved into this big, dead log that was at the bottom of his snag. Poppy made her way northward through the forest in short runs. She could only hope that she had chosen the right direction. Sometimes she paused to eat, but she felt too insecure to stop for long. Her toes ached with tension. An hour later, Poppy stopped to nibble on some pine seeds. As she ate, she noticed a huge log that was partly embedded in the earth. It was covered with yellow fungus, and it looked very old, and it appeared to be hollow. Poppy considered it. If the log was unoccupied, it might be the perfect place for her to get some rest with safety. Mom, would you let Trillian out? Poppy considered it. If the log was occupied, it might be the perfect place for her to rest. Then she noticed the remains of a large gray tree. Its top was gone, and it had a hole in the side of it. It might be safer than the log. But after studying it, Poppy decided that that hole was way too high for her to climb up to. No, the log on the ground would be better. Wary, she crept forward. The closer she came to the log, the stronger grew a scent that was unfamiliar to her. She sensed trouble. She was still sniffing when she heard the sound of a twig snapping behind her. She spun around quickly and gasped. It was a red fox, long bushy tail swishing back and forth, and it was coming in her direction, its sharp nose to the ground. Poppy understood immediately. That fox was following her smell. Turning back, Poppy made a flying leap that landed her right at the log's open end. The fox, hearing and then seeing her, barked sharply and closed in, his lips drawn back from his sharp teeth. Poppy stood trembling before the log. Every instinct in her body warned her, do not go into that log. But when she looked back, however, the fox was right there, almost upon her. There was no time to waste. She had no choice. She dived into that log. The fox stuck its nose in after her, its barking now booming around Poppy like a cannon. Trying to get away, she moved deeper back into the musky dark of the log. Suddenly, she stopped. At the far end of the log, she could hear the distinct sound of heavy breathing. It was exactly what she had feared. Another creature was already in that log. Hastily, she turned toward the log opening. Mom, would you let Trillian out?
I just did. And did she bark to come in?
It was exactly what she had feared. Another creature was already in the log. Hastily, she turned back toward the log opening. She never reached it. The fox's red tongue and its sharp white teeth were blocking her way out. Poppy stared back into the log's darkness. The breathing and the rattling were drawing nearer. Something was coming toward her. She was trapped in the middle. Ooh, it's getting good. And that's the end of chapter 10. Next time we next time we come back, we'll be in chapter 11. And it gets even better. All right. Good to see you. Hope you like the book. Come back again. Bye.